Welcome to our Jump for Jazz show, part one. I'm Joe Williams, and I want to share with you the foundation and evolution of America's only native art form. To define jazz is impossible, but we'd like to say that jazz is a relationship of melody, harmony, and rhythm that did not exist before the 20th century, and that improvisation is a key element of that relationship. And we won't have time to mention every deserving musician, but we hope to give insight to those who were major innovators and contributors to the evolution of this very special and creative music. Our story begins in New Orleans, and we are fortunate to have with us an original of the New Orleans style of jazz, that great woodwind player, Garvin Bushell. Garvin, tell us about your early days when you and jazz were young and some of the musicians you played with.
Yes, those were very happy days, Joe. We were looking for the world, so to say, and to conquer, and we had great expectations.
That's the way it should be conquered, with music. Really.
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, listen, I want to ask you something. Why did it only develop here in America and not in other places where there were slaves?
Well, I think the slave masters that were in the South or in South America and in the Caribbean were Portuguese and Spanish. And I think their music had some influence on the slaves in compiling their own sort of composition. Whereas in America, the influence was Indian and Irish. So therefore, the influence was in the Irish cadence and in the Indian quarter tone. Yeah. And I think that's how the origin of the blues and the whole thing started.
Could you give us a demonstration maybe of the...
Well, back in Ohio, I lived in southern Ohio as a boy, and there were many Cherokees that had crossed the Ohio River. And some of my ancestors, my grandfather was part of that tribe. And I used to hear them sing back there. The Indian, for instance. And pretty soon, you know, they say that you begin to hear some of the slaves doing the same thing, but when they were in trouble. I wonder how I'm gonna make it through the night, oh Lord.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the origins of it.
All right. Around the turn of the century, ragtime was a popular style of music, and it was the first music to give black musicians work. In the about 1899, I think it was, Scott Joplin wrote these original rags in St. Louis and Missouri. And the Maple Leaf Rag was his first big major success. And ragtime is what you call legitimate music, and it was meant to be played precisely as it was written, right? Garvin, how does ragtime relate to the more free-form jazz style?
Well, first of all, ragtime was very technical, and it was really a challenge to be able to play it on, and particularly on clarinet or piano or violin. And you stuck right to the melody that was written on the chart, whereas in jazz, you improvised on another melody, changed the melody, adhered to the harmony, but changed the melody itself. But ragtime, you didn't move off of that. You didn't budge.
Well, well, Scott's The Entertainer, he was very big. You recorded that, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I had the pleasure of recording that in 1947 with Bunk Johnson. Also on that date was Don Kirkpatrick, piano, Wellman Broad, who was with Duke for many years, on bass, Alfonso Steele playing drums, and I don't remember the full name of Ed Cuffey, yes.
Yes, Cuffey.
On trombone,
yes.
And I played clarinet. We did this, yes, we did this in 1947 at Carnegie Hall. We recorded it.
Oh, marvelous. Let's hear it.
That was the day of the big snow in New York.
The big snow in New York.
I remember coming out of the hall, we finished, we went at 11 o'clock, they just started snowing. When we came out at 5 that evening, there was traffic was stopped. So Bunk came out the door and said, my God, look at all the... He'd never seen this much snow in his life. He said, I'm going back to New Orleans, and he did the next day. He took the train back, stuck in that snow.
Let's hear The Entertainer.